Many Nigerians were surprised yesterday when the Senate and the House of Representatives postponed taking a look at the state of emergency declared by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in Rivers State. Senator Seriake Dixon has made it known substantially that the president acted out of line in the declaration. He hinted that today they will take a look at his declaration and also dissect what the Constitution says about such matter.
Senator Dixon joins me now in the studio. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, Charles.
And I'm glad you brought the Constitution along with you.
Yeah.
Are you for or against this move by President Tinubu to declare a state of emergency in Rivers State?
Well, as a committed Democrat, are very serious concerns. I was shocked when the president's proclamation was read yesterday evening, and I promptly issued a statement condemning it. I'm not in support of it. Okay? It doesn't, in my view, as you rightly said in your intro, meet the constitutional threshold, in my view. Are there concerns? Are there worries? Yes, there are in Rivers State. But it's not one that a declaration of emergency will address. It doesn't call for it. If you look at the Constitution, Section 305 of the Nigerian Constitution, it gives you, spells the conditions that will warrant or justify a declaration of a state of emergency. But Charles, that's not the only thing. You can declare a state of emergency, which is provided for in the Constitution, without necessarily and at the same time removing elected leaders, the governor and his deputy, as well as the members of the State House of Assembly. If the Supreme Court has held that the Honorable Martin Amaewhule is the Speaker of the Rivers State House of Assembly, then that issue is settled, subject to other litigations, because I hear there are so many litigations on the way. Conditions now have to be made conducive for all to carry out their legitimate constitutional duties and functions. But Charles, I know that we are dealing with very tense situations. And since this proclamation last night or yesterday evening, I've been busy calling and receiving calls, making calls and calling for calm, for people to reduce the temper. Because, you know, no matter how well-intentioned, when you sit down in Abuja and make a proclamation, a statement like that, it sends shockwaves, and people react differently. Some see it as highly provocative and oppressive. Others see it as something that, so I've been calling on people. Firstly, my people have been making the case that this is not and should not be seen as a war between two tribal groups who are brothers and neighbors, the Kwere people and the Jaw people. And I've been making that case for a long time now, but more so since yesterday. So that, Charles, we don't wake up one morning and have a situation like Rwanda, where overnight, neighbors wielding machetes and other weapons of war unleash terror and violence on others. Brothers, calling them cockroaches and rats and so on. This is how these things begin.
It's a very frightening
So
thought.
that, I want to use this opportunity, even now as I'm appearing before you, and I urge all leaders across the divide to do so, and to make the point that this should be seen as a political contest, a battle for the control of the political soul of Rivers State, and perhaps with the resources thereof. You understand?
Yes.
And not a war between ethnic groups. There are Ijaw leaders who are supporting the Minister of State, key leaders of our people. Some of them are in touch with me. As well as there are also Ikwere people, the minister's ethnic group in Rivers State, who are also supportive of the governor. So I want to make that point clear. And I want to urge all our people to see it like and make the explanation.
Right.
So that we don't wake up one morning and have a Rwanda kind of situation.
And that's
very important.
Very important.
Very, very important
advice.
And those are the things that the Nigerian state and agencies need to address.
I wanted to say this to you because that's a very measured statement that you've made, which is, I think, a very important one, crucial at this time.
Yes.
Why do you think, in the face of that and the potential for the kind of provocation that you as a statesman, if you like, I mean, you've been governor of your state for 8 years and you're a senator now. I mean, why do you think, in the face of such potentially sort of provocative situations, the president went ahead and took the action that he did?
Well, first of all, I'm of the view that the president was ill-advised, with all due respect to the president. And the president has been a Democrat all his life. I mean, it's actually, in this game, I used to refer to him as one of the field marshals, you know, and I'm surprised, I'm shocked that the president came to the conclusion that he did. And I'm also not too sure of the depth of consultation that went in, okay? Are we all concerned? Has the president shown concern about the crisis? Yes. He had intervened, and I'm sure he knows the principal actors, and whatever step that he took appears insufficient now, but we should not give up. He should be supporting the peace process to bring people together, to get the principal actors to the same room, and give a martial order. And it has been done before. It has been done before. When President Jonathan was president, not only was there a declaration of emergency in 3 states, Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa, all related to the insurgency at the time. And when there was need for more federal muscle, because that's what a state of emergency does, it gives federal muscle and a slight adjustment in terms of the fundamental liberties guaranteed by the Constitution. That's why it is called an extraordinary measure. You understand? The steps were taken without, the declaration was made without removing the elected officials of government. And even then, Democrats across this country raised an alarm, including the president. And rightly so too. Because no politician, committed politician, no Democrat, will sit by and watch someone proclaim an emergency rule. An emergency rule is an anathema. We are operating a constitutional democracy, which means periodic elections, which means guaranteed liberties of our people, freedom of association, freedom of expression, and the like, and the holding of regular elections, and crucially, the subordination of political authority by the civilian leadership, elected leadership, you know, over the people. All these elements are components of democratic rule. It's not just you are holding elections 4 years and therefore it's democracy. No.
Well, so
when you suspend the elected officials of state, that is like igniting a nuclear bomb in a constitutional democracy.
And you are a former Attorney General in your state, so you've got a very good grasp of the law and the Constitution. Is there any legal justification for that action?
Well, first of all, theoretically, by Section 305 of the Nigerian Constitution, there is provision authorizing the president in given cases and instances to declare emergency rule. If the nation is at war, if there is an overwhelming natural disaster, if there is a likelihood of a major breach of peace or disruption of the public order, such that you think that there is no other way you can preserve public order and peace than by imposing emergency rule. All those criteria are there. Section 305 is there. You can read it all. So theoretically, every president has the powers under the Constitution to declare emergency rule.
But the issue is the suspension of the elected
issues, Charles.
leaders.
It's even debatable, in my view, whether those conditions stipulated by the Constitution are met.
Yes.
Yes. Because the Constitution didn't just impose, powers, didn't just grant powers to a president to just declare if it appears to the president to be the right solution. No, the Constitution has prescribed conditions that must be met. And no self-respecting Democrat or politician who subscribes to supporting the will of the people, the sovereignty of the people, will accept unless those conditions are met. So they've got to be strictly scrutinized. Strictly scrutinized. And even when you have come to the conclusion that in the instant case, emergency rule is justifiable, clearly it does not impose, it doesn't require the removal of the elected officials. Because Fubara, the governor and the deputy, and the Martin Amaewhule and the assembly members, all of them, they collectively constitute the sovereignty. They are custodians of the sovereignty of the peoples of Rivers State. And that has to be respected.
Well, listening to you right now,
yes.
You are a member of the Senate. Yes. I expect that there will be robust discussion on the floor of the Senate about this. And we're a little bit surprised that this issue, I mean, we would have thought that it would be of the gravest emergency, yes, and that it would be discussed very urgently today, and a decision, the process, a decision reached, but it appears as though there was very little discussion, and the whole process has been adjourned.
No. It's not so. Charles, yes, Nigerians have a right to expect, after all, we are their representatives. We're elected by them to represent them. And I know that expectation is high, and we could have done it today. But you see, the Constitution has prescribed rules. This emergency rule is a very serious constitutional development.
Indeed.
It's one of the most serious constitutional developments. And the framers of the Nigerian Constitution took their time, not only in regulating strictly the conditions under which it can be imposed. And let me be clear, none of this talks about removal of elected officials. None of it. In other words, the expectation is that the president, even when he declares a state of emergency, can do so to strengthen and aid the elected officials, not to replace them.
So if it's that important, why didn't you guys discuss it today?
By the Constitution, after the declaration, which the president has done, what he has done has not actually completed the declaration. The president has only started the process.
Yeah, but he's sworn in the administration.
Yes, whatever he has done is inchoate. It has not crystallized. The powers of emergency under Section 305 have not crystallized. In other words, legally speaking, constitutionally speaking, there's no effective emergency rule now.
Until
the Senate and the House, the National Assembly, collectively speaking, by 2/3 majority. You see how the Constitution recognizes that it's an extraordinary situation.
Right.
Now, the constitutional requirement is for the president to forward that proclamation to the National Assembly.
Well, he said he has.
And it has to be gazetted and sent.
He said he has.
Now, when they receive, the Speaker and the Senate President, as they normally do every morning, they will read communications from the executive. That has to be presented.
Right.
Once that is presented, then the process of the National Assembly's participation in this emergency rule process has kicked in. For now, today we expected it. I was there. A lot of members were there. And we all have our views. There may be some who are in support, but I can tell you it will be a difficult thing to get it passed. And let me tell you, the Constitution says 2/3 majority. In other words, of the total number, not of the people who are present.
Right.
And But there are some of us who, because we take this seriously, it's an ideological issue. It's not just personal. It's not because of Fubara. It's not because of Amaewhule. It's not because it's an APC government doing it. No. It is, for some of us, ideological. It has to be a matter of protecting the sovereignty of the peoples of Rivers State and then the democratic rights within our constitution.
Would you be surprised if the Senate passes that?
I'll be very surprised. First of all,
move by the president?
Oh yes, because it has to be supported by 2/3 of members.
Well, you need at least 73
about
senators.
73 senators.
Yeah.
Not only will you have 73 senators in attendance, it means that of the members who are present, you understand? 73 must vote in support. The same number that can enthrone a leadership of both chambers. 2/3. In the case of the House of Reps, 240 members. In the case of the Nigerian Senate, where I'm a member, 73 of us will have to agree. Okay? And some of us, as I've said, for ideological consistency, in defense of the democracy of our country, in defense of the Constitution, in defense of the sovereignty of the peoples of Rivers State, we are ideologically opposed to it.
Right. Yes. This is, of course, from a political point of view. Yes. I mean, Rivers State is a PDP state.
Yes.
What sort of numbers can you muster, just doing the arithmetic for us, purely from the point of view of the opposition? What numbers can you muster in the National Assembly?
Well, Charles, I'm not
because
going
this will probably go along partisan lines.
No, it will not. It will not be. When I was a PDP member of the House of Reps, I'm not just in the Senate, I was in the House of Reps twice elected. We had a tradition, and some of us have always shown it. When we are not convinced that a particular action, proposed action, is not in conformity with the Constitution of our country, we have a moral duty to say no to it. When we are not convinced that it serves the best national interests, we have a duty to say no to it.
Well, you're talking about duties. Yes. We're talking about the practicalities.
Yes.
We're hearing that the government and its supporters have launched a major lobbying sort of thing at the National Assembly. Yes. There's all kinds of rumors
lobbying
floating around.
A number of these are rumors and speculations and gossip. We don't go by that. Yes. And by the way, lobbying is a known legislative activity.
Yeah, but it depends on what shape that lobbying takes.
You can lobby by meeting people to explain the point of view of government. I did a lot of lobbying, if you must know, today. I went very early and did a lot of lobbying on the floor and a lot of calls to my colleagues. And a number of us, a lot of senior ranking members of the Senate are not convinced, as of yet.
Would you say that the National Assembly, or at least the Senate where you are, is fragmented into blocks? I mean, are we looking potentially at a sort of laborious process that will end in some kind of, climactic conflict between the various blocks as this process continues?
First of all, look, in a democracy, groupings of members of parliament, of politicians, whether you call them blocks, or in some areas they call them caucuses, they're all legitimate. It's all an exercise of the right freedom of association. Okay? And you can't stop that. You have people who are progressive members, you have others who are quite conservative, you have others who are in between, you have others who are ultra, you have others who are extra progressive. So you have all of this in every human political environment. So I don't want Nigerians, I don't want you to bother yourself about that. What I know is that there are senators like me, and we're quite a number, ranking members, even newly elected members, who, for ideological reasons, are opposed to the declaration of emergency. And you see that anytime this matter comes up for discussion or debate.
Okay,
the president's party has majority. If they are able to muster their numbers, if they are able to make their case and convince members, which is also legitimate, if they do that successfully and they get 73, then the declaration will go
Well,
in the Senate.
We're almost
but it's a tough call.
out of time.
Yes.
You made a very powerful statement at the outset when you talked about calming frayed nerves in River State in particular and the Niger Delta in general. Speculate for us where you see things going in the next 6 months. Do you see this escalating further, or do you, I mean, beyond your hopes, your practical assessment of what is happening?
Well, first of all, I don't want, that's why I started by that comment. I don't want this crisis, and particularly this crescendo that we're in now, to be interpreted as some tribal conflict, which is not, okay? It's essentially a political dispute between a godfather and a godson, okay? Essentially,
and you want to limit it to
yeah,
that.
I think we should see it that way.
Yeah.
After all, it was the minister of FCT who brought it. The same way I facilitated a governor when I was leaving, and most of us do that. Sometimes it doesn't go well. Other times we manage, like people like us, we don't complain, we don't talk. We take everything in our strides. You know?
That's the way it should be.
So yeah, we take it in our strides, but you know, we're all differently made. Yes, there will be instances where you say, have I made the right decision? Okay? You may be disrespected, you may not be appreciated, there may be ingratitude, there may even be sheer wickedness and envy. You understand? And by the people you have helped.
That doesn't mean you have to ruin the state as a result.
So it doesn't mean you have to collapse everything.
Yeah.
Okay? But you see, and that's why I've been quite restrained. Because I know the feelings. I know if God has used you to raise people in leadership, in this political, and you see them do certain things, it will shock you. It will shock you. Every human being, okay? But we have to learn to manage that. And I feel that we should look at it that way, and the minister should be prevailed upon to still see the governor as his son, someone God used him to bring up. You know,
Okay.
There are good sons, there are others who are not quite good, but a father has to remain a father.
Indeed.
And manage. Okay, and there's room for that.
Yes.
There's room for that.
Indeed.
Okay?
And
there has to be respect.
Note,
There has to be respect for that. There has to be appreciation and gratitude for that, for what the minister has done. And we must all be available to support the existing levels of authority in Rivers State.
Yes.
The president, it's not too late for the president to say, look, President Jonathan also stopped the impeachment of a governor in Nasarawa State, a CPC governor.
Okay.
Even when the assembly and the chief judge and everybody was going one way.
Right.
So it's not late for the president.
Okay.
The
Well,
president
I
can
hope
still
the president.
intervene. Yes.
I hope the president is listening.